Charlene Louise Stubbs Grantham. I was born on May 29, 1938 in the Parks Victory Memorial Hospital in Napa, California. My mother's name is Lorraine Nelson Stubbs, was born September 5th, 1910. My father's name is Roy Kelly Stubbs. My father, Roy Kelly Stubbs, was born January 30th, 1911. I think they were married in about on January 2nd, maybe 1932. They were married with her sister and her husband-to-be in a little courthouse in a little town in Utah. My dad lived in Gunnison, Utah. My mother lived in Redmond, Utah, and my dad was doing some roofing in Redmond, and he was up on a roof of a house right close to where my mom lived. And he looked down and he saw this pretty little redhead girl walk past, and I think he thought right then, that is the girl I'm going to marry. And he did. My mother got her license to do hair when she was young, but she never did practice that. She was a homemaker her entire life. My father was a roofer. He worked on the roofs for many years, and then he started his own roofing business called Roy Stubbs Roofing Company with the logo, "Don't put it off, put it on." And he was in business at least 40 years. Had an excellent roofing business, was very well liked in this area, and a very honest man. When my dad moved to San Francisco, and then my mom followed him after they were married, and they lived in San Francisco, and I just remember them telling stories about standing in the bread lines because they didn't have enough money to buy certain foods, and they would have to stand in these long lines to get food. So they were very poor at that time. I have 3 siblings. Carol Lee, my older sister, Carol Lee Allen, my younger sister, Judy Ann Bernards, and my brother, who is the youngest, is Reed Roy Stubbs. When we lived on F Street and I was just a young girl, we had a group of girls and boys that lived in the neighborhood, and we'd go out in the evening and we'd play games when the weather was nice. And we would play kick the can, Annie Annie over, and we had a great time. We just had fun doing that. And then my dad, one of the houses, we lived in one house, and then we moved next door to the next house on F Street. And my dad built a warehouse for his roofing business behind the house. And I always looked forward every day to be able to go out there and see the men when they'd come home from work and talk to them and visit with them. And they were all, my uncle also worked for my dad. And anyway, it was the time when they had the atomic bomb scares, and they used to say that if atomic bomb hit, your eyes would kind of come out of your head, and it scared me to pieces. And because it scared me to pieces, some of the little friends in the neighborhood would tease me all the time. And when the men would come home from the jobs, and I would tell them that they would always make me feel better, and they were always very friendly to me. Probably was in 5th or 6th grade, I think. I had braids. My mother French braided my hair and had a lot of hair then. And one day my mom was washing my hair, or not washing it, but fixing it, and she saw little bugs crawling in my hair, and so I had lice. And that was kind of a different thing at that time. You didn't hear so much about it. And my mother was such a good mom and so sweet. She didn't want to hurt my feelings and cut my hair, so they didn't have the shampoo that they have nowadays. She got kerosene, and she put that on my hair to try to kill these little bugs. I graduated from high school, Napa High School, in 1956. I went to Brigham Young University for 4 years and graduated in 1960, in the fall of 1960, and I graduated with a degree in elementary education. going to BYU, my parents were going to send each one of us 2 years, and they thought that would be good for a girl. And then I did business courses for 2 years. I love shorthand, typing, office machines, anything to do with business classes, because I loved being a secretary. So anyway, when I was completing my last 2 years, before I completed my last 2 years, because I was going to come home after 2 years, my dad and mom talked, and they decided that it would, if I really had something I wanted to do, that they would send me the other 2 years. So immediately I switched over to elementary education. I don't think I'd ever thought of that before, but I changed over to that, and so I went the next 2 years, and I had to go to summer school to graduate. And in 1960, when I graduated, of course my parents and family came back to see me graduate. And then when I came home to Napa, I had applied to teach up in Sacramento, California, which is about an hour from Napa. And I had an interview, and my mom took me up there, or drove with me up there, and she sat in the car and went into the school, to the principal's office. He talked with me, and I got a contract and signed it. I believe I made, I want to say $4,200 a year. Might have been less than that, I'd have to look. Not very much, but it was for that time. And my mother and I were both amazed that I had gotten a job that quickly. So I taught at Hagenwood School, it was called, North Sacramento, California. I taught 3rd grade for 2 years. And I had only done 1st grade student teaching, and it wasn't long before school started and I had to start teaching. And the principal, Mr. Papoff, his name was, different name, but nice man. He said that there would be a back to school night, and I would have to get up in front of all these 3rd grade parents. Not knowing anything about what 3rd graders taught, I said, "Can I be sick that night?" And he laughed. So I got up in front of all these, and I was only like 22 years old, and all these parents sat there and listened to everything I said. And I wish to this day that I had what I said, so I could see actually what I told these parents. But I had 2 great years that year. Those 2 years, I loved it. Then after that, my girlfriend Shirley talked me into coming back to Utah and teaching. And I lived in Salt Lake and taught in Bountiful, and I taught a 2nd grade class, which was not my most favorite year. As soon as that year was over, I came back to California, and I taught school at Shear School, 1st grade, and loved all of it. I think I taught about 37 years. I met my husband at the Oakland Temple. I was at a single adults dance. Carl was a stake missionary at the time, and he was with an older lady downstairs in the baptismal font to a baptism, and he walked upstairs to the dance with this older lady. And I was just 25 at that time, and most of them were like 50 years old or bald-headed and quite old, and I was just sitting there wishing I was someplace else. And he walked in, and I saw him the minute he walked in the door, and he walked around, and I knew he had passed me up, and he didn't. He asked me to dance, and then we started going together, and a year later we were married. I got married on August 4th, 1964 in the Logan Temple. I was married at 26 years old and divorced at 38 years old. I guess my favorite hobby since I was little is to be able to cook, more baking than cooking. When we were little, we had, I guess my dad got it in there, it was like a playpen, only it was made out of wood and wire, as I remember. It was quite big, and that was our bakery. I always wanted to have a bakery when I was little. I have 3 children that I gave birth to. My oldest son is Todd Roy Grantham. He was born on June 27, 1967. Then I had Carlene Ann Grantham Armstrong, and and she was born on October 19th, 1968. And Sean Carl Grantham was born on May 11th, 1971. I have 12 grandchildren.
Leave me here alone. Don't tell me that we've grown for having loved a little while. Oh.
I have a married granddaughter, Candace, and she is married to Jess, so he's my grandchild now. And I have Casey, who married Amanda, and so I actually have 14 grandchildren and one great-granddaughter and one great-grandson.
Oh.